was a good friend of mine. One night, I got a frantic text message from his mom saying that he's threatened to kill himself. Well, went out looking for him. We went to his house. We drove, it seemed like for hours. His brother was out looking for him too. After a while, we just kind of get ready to call search. But I remember I was calling 911 and things of that nature, and I finally talked to a dispatcher and said, the sheriff's department hasn't pulled over right now. And I was like, thank God, he's gonna, they're at the very least 24-hour supervision or whatever. And so we just kind of stopped. Well, that didn't happen. They let him go. And he took his own life. And I didn't grieve. I went straight rage. I was upset at him, but the rage was that, the law enforcement had him pulled over, and what did he think? We got 3 or 4 people calling and saying, hey, this guy's suicidal. He needs help. And then you ask him, he's not going to say, oh, yes, He's like, no, I'm good. I want to go home. I think it should have been handled differently. That's when I realized I needed to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. That's when I knew that I was going to need to become a chaplain. I was born in Georgia, and then I moved to Texas when I was 6. And then I went back and forth during the summers. I went to my grandparents, kind of like grandparent camp, and worked on the farm, helped out with the garden and some of the cattle at times. And then I went back, to Irving, Texas, and then did all my education there as well, and graduated high school. I did try to attend UT Arlington for a little bit and just found out that it wasn't for me. And then I went, did, on-end jobs, construction, warehouse work, and that was to help, pay for my band gigs, and then trying to become a musician as well. The band ended up splitting up, and so I was at that that fork in the road, and I decided to follow my father's steps and by joining the Marine Corps, because he was in the Marines as a mortarman in Vietnam. So, if I was going to serve any branch, it was going to be the Marines. So that's what I did. I ended up being stationed in 29 Palms, California, which is right smack dab in the middle of the Mojave Desert. And it's a love-hate relationship being deployed to that area, because there's nothing really to do or anything nearby socially whatsoever. But on the positive end, I got the most trigger time and experience of weapons of many variations, doing from mortars to tow missile launcher to AT-4s and all kinds of, weapons. So that was like the best part about being there. The real estate was just not very pleasant at all. So S3 is operations and training. And as a corporal, I was filling a staff sergeant billet, or a staff sergeant above, briefing the battalion commander on the readiness of the battalion. And it was pretty significant. And a multitude of other tasks as well, like the DOORS, which is the Deployment Operations Readiness Exercise. and revamping their whole publication systems. That's how I ended up getting my Navy Achievement Medal. We also did a bunch of combined arms exercises. Most military units experience that, once a year. Well, we eat, slept, breathe, CAX, combined arms exercise, the entire time we were there, just about. Lots of trigger time, lots of practice. Some Marines wanted me to come over and work in their S3 shop. And I said, nah. And Master Sergeant Rosario was like, oh, no, you're not. You're not going anywhere. I was like, well, I didn't really want to go submarines anyways. I mean, I ended up finding Area 17, but so I finished out my tour there, and Second Regimental wanted me to re-enlist and stay there, and I was like, I had my fun and good times in 29 Palms, but I think it's time to go. I really don't, enjoy the scenery too much. I wasn't interested in staying in the middle of nowhere. It's like being on the moon. So I ended up going reserves non-obligated at MAG 41 in Fort Worth. And that was in 99. After being in MAG 41 for a year, I decided to part ways because the difference between being active duty, reservist, infantry, air wing just was not my cup of tea. So I ended up in a career of doing IT work downtown Dallas, and I did that for about 7 years. And I remember specifically on that day, I was in my job in the building when 9/11 happened. It was like time stood still. I remember the horrors and the shock of everything. It's like, how do you keep working after something like that happened that day? I was waiting to get called up back by the Marine Corps because I was still kind of technically IR. But I never got called, and I just wanted to wait and see for a little bit to see how committed we were to the mission in Iraq and Afghanistan. And then by 2007, I figured, I think we're taking this serious. So I knew I was too old at 36, almost 37 years old to do running 3 miles and doing Marine Corps infantry. And I knew the Army National Guard said, well, you don't have to run 2 miles. So I was like, I could probably do that. And that's what I did. The unit in my hometown in Gainesville, Georgia was going to Afghanistan. I asked them, hey, can I go? And then they said, sure. And they were like, you want to go to Afghanistan? I was like, yes, I want to go. I went with 1st and 121st Charting Company of the 48th Brigade. We went to Afghanistan, and 2009 through 2010 was at Fob Lightning near Gardez, Afghanistan. Hadn't even been there 2 weeks. We took our first casualty. First Sergeant Blair. I remember the guy vividly, and it turns out he got hit by an RPG in the gunner's turret. And I remember very specifically going up to my first sergeant after that happened. Very stern, but very trying to be as respectful as possible. But I told him, I was like, I don't want to ever catch you in that turret or anybody's turret. And he was looking surprised, like, do you know who you're talking to, kind of thing. And I remember reiterating to him, I was like, you're too important to this unit to be up there. Let us do our job. That's what we're trained for. And he's like, he nodded, and he's like, you're right. And that was when we took our first casualty. All we could do is, continue mission Charlie Mike's, we used to say. We got split up in all kinds of areas. MTT teams, military training, tactics with the ANA, which is the Army, and the Afghanistan police. And sometimes on some of the patrols, other teams got targeted by some of the very people they were training. How do you fight that? It's almost impossible. I remember one night vividly, it was twilight. Usually they wait till like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. This was like 9:30 in the evening. And I had 2 soldiers with me. I'm running the turnstiles and they're running the vehicle entry points. The next thing you know, I heard the rocket launch. And I said, hey guys, did you hear? And then right was there was the explosion started happening. And I think there was about at least 6 that hit that night, and they started getting pretty close. But, as time went on, several more attacks, a couple more ambushes. We lost more. I remember their faces, but only 2 of them that I knew well enough to know their name, and or had the privilege to speak to or talk to. We were getting personnel replaced, and then my truck got a new driver. We were doing a patrol back, or mounted patrol back, getting back to the base, and I guess he had the horse smells of the barn kind of thing, and he kind of picked up the speed. Well, MRAPs are pretty tall. Well, when you hit a large pothole or ditch at almost 40 miles per hour, that thing teeters. I felt like I was on a rodeo. I was bouncing back and forth between a 50 cal and a 240 Bravo, and like I was on a rodeo. I was on the ride of my life. The guys that were behind me, they said it looked like I was a rag doll being chunked around like nothing. I'm a pretty big guy, pretty strong, but there was nothing I could do with that. That was just the only thing that was keeping me down, and it was that I had that little tail harness that clips me down to the truck. If I wouldn't have been clipped down, I probably would have been thrown out. It was that hard. Busted up some of my teeth, my gums, blood, back was hurt bad. And I remember calling the radio, like, you all right? I'm like, no. So I had, we got basically, bed rest for about a week or so, I guess. And then just, of course, feed you Motrin, like M&Ms, and say, keep on going. One day on the base in Afghanistan, there was a controlled debt or something to that nature. I can't remember exactly what happened, but I ended up falling from over 8 feet high, and I landed on my head, and I sustained a severe TBI. I was medevaced, screaming the whole way there, asking why, because I didn't want to leave by the team. I went to Bagram, and I was there for 3 days, and then they did a series of CTs and tests, and they said I didn't do too well on the test. So they ended up sending me to Mannheim, Germany. But he did more tests. I was there for over 10 days. But the entire time I was maintaining contact with my first sergeant and my captain, telling them they're talking about sending me home. I don't want to go home. I want to finish what I started. So the first sergeant and CO fought it out with the docs and the medical teams. I got to stay. And that was something I was very happy about, because it was important to me. I didn't want to be separated from my brothers. I wanted to be there with them. I needed them as much as they needed me. I told them I could still do my job. I'm not completely incapacitated. So I got to go back to my unit, and that was pretty good. And so we went through a multitude of operations, combat patrols, and so after we all completed our tour. Well, my first sergeant specifically asked me, he's like, what do you think about, because it was the close of the tour. And he asked me how I thought it went. And I said, we did our job. As far as I'm concerned here, it's, mission success. We did what we came to do, and now we're good to go home. And the scary part was that they were starting to turn over the security forces to the Afghan security forces. And a lot of contractors weren't very happy about that. So I was like, well, I guess it's good, about time we get out of here then. So we left and we were back in the States March 21st, I think, in 2010. We finally returned. Part of Afghanistan came back with me. There's a part of me that's left back in Afghanistan. Wouldn't trade it for the world. And then, but I think that the most devastating parts was after Afghanistan, I mean, I lost 2 people that were in my unit when I found out, they completed suicide. And I'm like, how? Some of the strongest people I know. I didn't understand. I was shocked, terrified. It was dark. And, but you drive on. That's all you can do. But I had to fight my own demons and my own battles. Back stateside, I had problems passing the fitness test because of my back injury and things of that nature. I had to go down to Atlanta, Georgia, and I saw the doctor, told him what my problem was with the back and everything else. And when I thought I was done, then another soldier came by, some NCO that said, you need to go see the colonel. I'll go, I just thought I did. And he's like, no, you need to go see this doctor now. I go, doctor of what? And he goes, MH. And I was like, what's MH? He says, mental health. I was like, oh, I'm good. No problem. He goes, no, I don't think you understand. You don't have a choice. I was like, all right. So I talked to the colonel for about 45 minutes to an hour, and he asked me a series of questions, things like, what do you think some triggers are like? And I knew right away, like, I don't like dump trucks whatsoever. The way they slam down, it sounds like it's exploding off. I absolutely detest fireworks. We had so many rockets launch at us, I can't stand them. Roofers, sounds like small arms fire with their nail guns. And then he asked me how much I drank. I said, well, about a 6-pack a night. He goes, 6 what? Bottles of beer? And then I was like, oh, well, sorry, my bad. 6 large mugs of beer, because each one was 2 beers each, so it was technically a 12-pack. And so, but I was assured, I'm not trying to get drunk or whatever. So, well, why do you think you need to drink so much? I was like, so I could sleep. I just wanted to sleep. I kept having nightmares, and my wife at the time said I'd pop up and I'll be like gunning or whatever, or yelling or screaming. And what was weird about it was that I couldn't hardly ever remember most of them. And if I did remember, some of them would be like just on coattails. And he's like, that's a problem. You have PTSD. Then that's when I started going to the VA. And I had a hard time with the TBI part because it's like, it's the invisible injury, you know. Nobody else will wear, or unless you just straight up tell them, you know, how's that guy speech a little bit slurred or whatnot, or, you know, because mine slurs a little bit especially when I get nervous, just completely uncontrollable, and just forget all the time. TBIs are real bad. The PTSD, the TBIs symptoms are so similar and so close. I remember going to one of my first group counseling meetings for PTSD, and they said, thank you for your service and fighting for your country. Now you got to fight for your rights. And that was true. I didn't realize at the time, but it was very true. There's some good doctors, but there's some that are just absolutely horrible. I had one doctor try to prescribe me a medication, the side effects is suicide. I'm like, seriously? I was like, I told him, I want to see him again. The veteran suicide rate, you know, is 20 roughly on average, 22 veterans a day. One's too many. I'd like to try to keep my brothers and sisters alive, let them know they're not alone. We all got our pains. We all got each other, and we need to hang on to that. And that's what we got to do. Just Charlie Mike. There's the story about the guy that is in a hole in his darkest moments. And then there's the veteran that jumps down there and with them. I said, what are you doing here? Were you trapped? He was like, no, I've been here before. And I think being a combat veteran and a chaplain, some people want that advice or experience. Or, you know, sometimes they just need that shoulder, you know, or an ear to listen. We got to keep going. I mean, we lost those all across the pond, but we got to live for them or their sacrifices in vain. I failed one, but I saved one. I did. Boy, he was bad at me. But he loved me like a brother. And I called up the sheriff's department. I was like, look, I know y'all can ping a phone's location and find somebody. We don't want you to arrest nobody. This is a veteran in danger, you know, his own life. And somehow they managed to triangulate the signal. Somehow they found them, and it was because of my involvement. Because I was pretty persistent, because after losing my buddy, I wasn't going to lose another one. Not on my watch. So he's doing really good now. He's done a lot better, and that makes me proud. People, I guess, assume chaplains are more approachable or something of that nature, or feel free to release their burdens upon them and take that weight off their shoulders. And that's what we're for. And that's exactly what we're for. And I mean, although I've had some of the same experiences, I think it makes me even more accessible because I've been there. You know, for me, the faith is important, and you know, it's. I mean, because without the faith, what else do you got to hang on to? For me, you know, the focus is the mind, the body, and the spirit. The spirit, is with your faith. And then the body, you need to treat it like the temple for the Holy Spirit. And your mind is the meditation and the worship of God. John 14, Jesus comforts his disciples. Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I am going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. You know the way to the place where I am going. It's a journey. It's not I haven't crossed the finish line yet. There's not a finish line in sight, but I'm on the right track. I'm making my progress, and I'm, doing what I can, and I'm learning some lessons. Chaplains don't always have good days either, but I had to learn a couple things the hard way, but I'll get to it. I'll make it. And just be a living example. People got it so hard. It's like, man, I know, I'm right there. I hear you. But we can do this.